Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. One important point that I've recently connected by discussing with one brother, mashallah. He's got a lot of experience with wedding and marriage. And he said something interesting. And it made sense. And that is, when a sister says, I'm independent. When a sister says, I'm independent, what does it mean when you say I'm independent or I want to be independent? You're basically saying independent means I don't need you. I can be okay on my own. What does that mean? That should be a source of concern for a man and even for the woman. Can the woman be independent of the man? Or independent? No, she cannot. Not if you're a Muslim. If you're a feminist, then that's what they aim for. But not if you are a Muslim. Number one, you are dependent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on Allah. Number two, you are dependent on your husband. He is qawwam for you. You are dependent on your husband. No doubt, as a Muslim, there is no ifs, ands, and buts that you are dependent on your husband. For a lot of your life, you depend on your parents. You are always going to be dependent. But specifically, within marriage, you are going to be dependent on your husband. You have to be dependent. Actually, you should arrange yourself and plan yourself in such a way that you will be dependent on him. That's just the way it is. You got to understand that. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So if some sister says, I want to be independent, this is a good question for brothers to ask to sisters, then that's a red flag. That's right there, some indication there's some deep-rooted feminism into these sisters, and this is dangerous, okay? So there's no such thing as I want to be independent, I'm independent. All the women independent, right? Destiny's Child type of stuff. A woman has to understand, and she has to say, I want to be dependent on a man. And even the man, to an extent, will have some dependency on the female, but the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wa-tuqa wal-afafa wal-ghina. Why Allah asks you for guidance, for chastity, and for afaf, wa-tuqa, taqwa, afafa, chastity, and being self-sufficient when it comes to, not depending on people and finances and so on. For a man, he has to be more independent than a woman, but he'll have some dependency. He needs love, comfort. He needs his children to be raised. He needs emotional support. He needs intimacy. So he's going to have some dependency as well. But the woman, if you look at the way the Sharia is laid out, her role as a female in the relationship, dependency is high. And she needs to be comfortable with that. Actually, she needs to seek that. The moment you're saying, I want to be independent, it means I don't need you. So then why are you getting married? Why are you getting married if you don't need me? That's a red flag. Why are you here? Why are we even discussing? You just show up to check things out? Now, you don't want to have a marriage where the woman says, I'm independent, I don't need you. Right? That's a recipe for disaster and for a fast and easy divorce. Because imagine if you have a job and you have all this money, huge money. And what's the attitude that you're going to have when you're in this job? Let's say your boss tells you something, right? There's someone who's in charge of you. There's some kind of hierarchy. And they tell you something like, I don't need you. Get lost, right? Because you have all this backup. You don't really need the job. You're not dependent on this job. If you are dependent on this job, if you have a family that depends on it, if you need that salary, you're going to calculate your responses and the way you do things. Doesn't mean you have to be a doormat for people to abuse you, but you will calculate your responses and how you're going to do things because, wait a second, I got to be smart about it. I need this job. Attitude is very rational. I got to be calculated. I want to make the right decision. And when you don't need it and you're like, people say something, you just flip them and you just move on to something else and something else, which is not consistency, it's not right. So that's kind of what can happen in a marriage where a woman thinks I am independent. She's been convinced by feminists that I am independent. I told you, feminism is very, very close to kufr. A lot of people are going to get upset. It is very, very close to kufr. Okay, you are very close. Some of the ideologies, if you fall into it, and maybe you don't know. Some people leave Islam and they don't know. I'm not here to make takfir. I'm here just to warn people to be careful. Because some of these ideologies, not being dependent, not caring about your husband, I'm this, I'm that, I'm better than men, I am like men. These kind of ideologies, these are big issues. Denying ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, denying Sharia, denying hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about hijab, about the role of woman, about women leading prayer, all kinds of stuff that is infiltrating and bleeding into our ummah. You are threading a very, very, very dangerous, road that you got to be very careful with. So when a woman tells you, I want to be independent, that's a red flag, man. That's a red flag. And if you woman, you sister say that, that's something you need to reconsider. Because by, subhanAllah, you are dependent. And you should be happy that you are dependent. And you should work together. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, and cooperate in birr and taqwa and righteousness and fear of Allah, and not in evil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and help us to be united in the truth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide our sisters who want to be independent, to wish to be dependent on their good husbands, inshallah. May Allah guide the men to be strong men that women can be dependent on, inshallah, like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And may Allah destroy this feminist movement who is killing our ummah, killing our women, and killing our men as well. We got men now who are feminists, subhanAllah, ya Allah. First we had to deal with women, and we weren't even able to catch on, to get some headwind or tailwind on the fight, and now we got to deal with this male feminist. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.